What's going on, LBHT crew? Listen, breaking news. Breaking news. It's not so breaking by the time this comes out, but it's still fairly new. But Carolina Panthers head coach, former head coach, Frank Reich has been fired. Okay. Something that we've been talking about for weeks now. Actually, we've been talking about it from early on. I mean, it looked bad early on. I was one at least that said, hey, you got to give him at least a year. It's going to look bad this year, but he'll get together. Frank Reich's a good coach. He's got a good coaching staff. And it just looked worse and worse every week. This past week looked no different. You know, you guys play the Titans. That Frank Reich's words, that was a winnable game, and I agreed. I picked you guys to win, but it just looked like the team gave up, especially your O-line. That's what it looked like for a few weeks. That your team is your players just aren't engaged, and when your team is like that, you lost a locker room. Whether you're a good coach or not, that's it for you. So David Tepper, I think he pulled the trigger a little too late. He probably should have done it a couple weeks ago, but it's done now. And there's some other firings as well. Josh McCown and Deuce Staley were also fired. That was a little surprising to me. I like Deuce Staley a lot, but man, look, the team's not performing, so that's what it is.
Yeah, and Frank didn't really seem engaged. And there's reports coming out now that he just he didn't really want to be there. He didn't like the quote energy of the building. And it's very, 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 very obvious at this point that David Tepper is a terrible, terrible owner.
Yes.
And that's not even to say that Frank was doing a good job or anything like that. But I don't think anybody really wants to be around this dude. You bring him, his wife, and some other people down to practice, observing the O-line and D-line drills. Like, why? What are you getting out of that aside from trying to intimidate your first-year coach?
Yeah, we discussed this on our show before, right? We said that David Tepper wants to be Jerry Jones, right? I think a lot of owners, when they kind of look at that, because Jerry Jones is a polarizing figure, and Jerry Jones for being very hands-on. One, I don't think that's a good thing, right? But two, Jerry Jones has a football background. He played football, right? Many decades ago, but he did play football. He has an understanding of it. If you think about owners like Al Davis used to be a coach, right? So there's that background there. There is an understanding. Now, granted, they're far removed from the game, and their meddling ultimately has hurt their franchises at times. Cowboys are looking good now, but I don't think Jerry Jones is as hands-on as he was in the past, right? But the owners that meddle more into those affairs, if they don't have that football background, it just makes things a whole lot worse. David Tepper does not have a football background. David Tepper, and it's not just this team; it's a soccer team as well, right? That he's just not doing well. He wants to be hands-on. You don't understand the game enough. There's a reason why you hire presidents, GMs, and whatnot to run your team, right? Because they have a better understanding of that. You're supposed to just be the owner, fall back, say, hey, where do you need me? What do we need to spend money on? That's supposed to be your role. And if they're not performing, then you make changes as needed. But, talking to Frank Reich after every game, and it's first year head coach, a coach that's had some success, a former player himself, what are you talking to him about?
Yeah.
There's nothing for you guys to discuss. This, wait until the end of the season or bye week or mid-season, whatever, but like every game he has to give you a progress report. That makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And this is now the third straight head coach who's been fired in season, the second season in a row. They did this with Matt Rule last year. So you're looking at a guy in David Tepper who is just getting a reputation as being all bluster and bravado with no actual, like you said, no competence in terms of running a football team, and now also no patience, right? He took over the team talking about how you're going to do it the right way, and Rome wasn't built in a day, but they're going to build a strong foundation for sustained success and wouldn't accept mediocrity, and he doesn't have the patience for anything. No. They're 1-10 for sure. It's a terrible season. They look awful, but where are you going from here, right? You were already turned down last season by the head coach that you wanted in Ben Johnson. Who just said, no, I'll continue being an offensive coordinator rather than come be the head coach for your team, right? And now, like I said, you fired Matt Rule in season, you fired Ron Rivera in season before that, and now you fired Frank Reich in season, in his first season with a rookie quarterback, and in a very a pretty young team, a very young O-line, brand new running back, whole new wide receiver core, everything. So, they weren't set up necessarily for success, and you fired him in the first season anyway. If you're a coach who's a coordinator or position coach looking to climb that ladder, is Carolina even on your radar? You don't have that first round pick, which is, almost a lock to be the number one pick at this point. You're kind of stuck with Bryce Young, whether you want him or not. You don't have any real assets at wide receiver. The running backs haven't been very good. The O-line has been awful. And, you're looking at trying to replace all of that with just the second round pick. You have the later picks also, but you're not expecting a whole lot out of the later picks normally, right? You have Brian Burns on the other side of the ball who, you had an offer for a couple first round picks. You turned that down and have not been able to get a contract extension done. He's going to be a free agent following the season. So now you don't even know if you're going to have Brian Burns. Derek Brown's coming up on contract. Don't know if he's going to be there. They're talking about they were already shopping Jeremy Chin. So you don't know even what kind of asset you're going to have on the defensive side. Now, the defense has played pretty well, considering the number of injuries that they've had and everything. But you're talking about potentially losing a lot of the young talent that would make that defense appealing to a new coach. You don't even have the talent to begin with on the offensive side that would make it appealing to a coach. You don't have, like I said, the first round pick that this year. You're missing a second round pick next year.
You're losing some of the means to make it better.
You have some cap room, but the GM didn't get fired, right? And so you're looking at a guy who's done a poor job, to put it mildly, and you may be saddled with that guy at this point.
That's I don't know. To Scott Fitterer's credit, man, that's the benefits of being a yes man.
Yeah.
hey, boss, I did everything you asked me to do. You know what? Yeah, I'm loyal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loyal. You tell me to do something, I do it, and that I think that's the only reason why he's still here, is that he did everything Tepper asked him to do, and the failures are a direct reflection of David Tepper's meddling into the team, right? So the interim coach, you and I talked about this. If Frank Reich were to get fired, there are a bunch of coaches on that staff that could be the interim coach and should be eventual head coach, because I think the answer for your next head coach is on the staff. They should be looking at somebody on the team who has a vested interest in Bryce Young's development, right? Not getting some coach that wants to start fresh and doesn't have any interest in Bryce Young. Get somebody that wants to see him grow.
Yeah, the thing about that for me, and I've heard people say that Brown and Evero didn't want to be, shouldn't have been the interim coach because
the interim coach is I didn't say his name.
Chris Tabor, the special team coordinator.
Yeah.
Now the offensive defensive coordinator Evero and Thomas Brown, there's talk they shouldn't have been the interim coach because that could hurt them in terms of trying to find a head coaching job, because his team is just bad. You're probably not going to turn it around. So you're going to go in there and just lose a bunch of games, and that kind of takes a little bit of the shine off you, right? Which I can see that. I can see that reasoning. But just for Carolina,
Yeah.
I can't imagine that you try to sell the media, the players, the fan base on trying a third member of the same staff, because it's Frank Reich. Now you're going to the interim and Chris Tabor. Presumably he's not going to be the head coach. So you say, hey, you're out. You're not getting the job. We're going to promote somebody else from this same staff. I don't think that goes over very well.
But that logic doesn't make sense, though, right? It doesn't make sense, because if I'm looking to hire Caldwell, Brown, Evero, whoever, right? It doesn't matter how the rest of the season goes and how they look. You're the coach I want. I don't want you to look good for anybody else. I want you here, right?
Yeah.
So that logic doesn't make sense either. It'll make them look bad because how bad a team is. Who cares? I don't want you interviewing anywhere. You're my guy.
Listen, NFL owners care because they have terrible hiring practices. Okay?
Yes.
So that I think it absolutely would make an impression on some owners, a negative impression on some owners if they were to go out there and just lose the rest of the games.
Well, I'm not saying go out there and lose on purpose, but like, hey, I want Thomas Brown as my next head coach. So he's taking over and he's going to be my guy. And in fact, because he's a black coach, you don't even have to go through an interview process. You can just say he's my guy.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that the owners, I think, would get a negative impression of these coaches having come in to be the head coach and not making a difference with the team. Because I don't, and I don't necessarily think that Tabor is going to make a difference, with the Panthers moving forward. I think they're probably going to look mostly the same. And so if you have you're high on a guy and then he gets a head coaching job and the team doesn't look any different, maybe you're not as high on that guy anymore. But we'll see. They have their 6 games left. Something has to change. Yeah. Thomas Brown is going to be calling plays again, like he was a few weeks ago before Frank Reich took that back to try and save his job, which was obviously a colossal failure. Honestly, I don't know. I think that he wants to go outside the organization. I think he still wants to get one of the young offensive minds and kind of make a big splash at head coach. That's what they wanted to do last offseason. Couldn't get it done. And I think that he's going to try and take a swing at that again. So I'm not of the opinion that one of these guys on the staff is going to get the job, although I think they should get a shot at it. I don't think it's going to happen.
Look, whatever move Tepper makes, okay, he needs to stay focused. Okay. And how can he stay focused? Listen, good news for David Tepper. All right. I found this stuff. Actually, you found it. You put me onto it. Me and Hendo. Okay. It's called Magic Mind. All right. You guys have heard us talk about Magic Mind. I am a believer now. I'm a true believer. Okay. He told me about it. He said it's helped him focus at work.
Yes.
He said it tastes good. I'm big on things tasting good. I'm not a fan of consuming green substances, but tastes pretty good. Yeah. And I can honestly say it did help me focus. Right. That's the honest truth. It works. It's good stuff. Like, it's all natural. I'm sure you could talk about the ingredients and everything like that, but just my experience with it after having it for about a week, it definitely helps me, gives me that little extra boost I need. You guys know how it is when you're dragging throughout the day and you just can't focus on what you're doing. This stuff works.
Yeah, you mean the ashwagandha? You mean the matcha?
Yes.
Yeah, the all natural ingredients that don't include sugar, and it's keto and vegan friendly, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would hope, David Tepper takes a shot and maybe he can calm down a little bit and sit in his office and relax. Focus on whatever business he needs to run. Maybe focus on turning his soccer team around, because that's a disaster too. But yeah, no, it helps me do that. I sit down to either work on the show, making the videos or doing my day job, and it helps me lock in. And it helps the time pass without me getting fatigued. Losing focus and needing to get up and walk around. And it just helps me get things done.
Yeah.
The best part about it too, if you are kind of interested in trying it out as well, money back guarantee, 100% money back guarantee. So if you order it, you don't like it, just let them know. They'll refund the money, no harm, no foul. But you're gonna like it, right? So if you are interested, if you could use something to help you kind of get into that creative space or a productive space, go to www.magicmind.com/lunchbreak and use the code HT20. That's H for hot or HT for hot take 20 HT20. And that's going to get you 20% off of your first order, or up to 56% off if you go with the subscription order, which we definitely recommend because you don't want to run out at any point. You want to make sure you're always well stocked with that. But again, that's www.magicmind.com/lunchbreak and using the code HT20.
And that'll be the link description. Yep, link will be in the description. Absolutely. But yes, Tepper could definitely use some of this because it seems like he's not focused on anything when he's making these hires. I mean, these are the type of things that we fear when there's a new owner, right? That the owner is just too wealthy to really be invested. He's just like, well, I'm just going to throw money at it and fix the problem. Because Matt Rule, yes, he was a name that was kind of floated out there. The Giants coveted him. Mm-hmm. Other teams were looking at him. He was a hot name, and he said, "Hey, that's a hot name. Throw some money at him and bring him over here, and let's make it work." And instead of laying down some parameters, you just gave him full reign, and you never let a first-time college coach going to the NFL, never give them full reign, never give them full control.
I'll go one better. Don't give any coach full reign. Correct. Okay? I mean, Bill Belichick has that. How's he doing with it right now? He's benched his quarterback like 4 times this year, and he keeps starting him the next week. He has no answers from the personnel side on what to do. Right.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I will say this one thing in defense of David Tepper. If I were to buy a team, I would be exactly the same way. Like, you're not making any decisions that I have not approved. Right. This is my team. I've won countless championships in Madden. I know what I'm doing. You were unemployed. Okay. I gave you a job. Don't tell me you know better.
Younger us, definitely. But at our age, I think this is why it's important to hire a front office that you trust. Hire a GM that you trust, right? Don't just get a guy. Get a guy that you vetted him, right? You've done your due diligence. You're a businessman. This is what you're supposed to do, right? And once you settle on that person or people, right? Because it's usually your president, vice president, GM, or whatnot. Let them do their magic. Obviously, they're gonna keep you in the loop. Obviously, you have final say, right? Obviously, you want to give your input, but really evaluate yourself. Do I really know what I'm talking about? Right? Hey, I really like this to get Aaron Rodgers. That's cool. That's what he wanted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But you couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. Hey, I really like to get Matt Stafford. I want to make a splash at quarterback. I felt him on that. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you had to splash. You had Cam Newton. You hired Matt Rule and let Matt Rule run him off. You should have just kept Cam. But that's another thing. But you want Matt Stafford? Cool. He didn't want to come here. All right. Now let's look towards the draft. All right. You didn't make Matt Rule get a quarterback then, right? It should have been Justin Fields. You let this new coach decide, hey, we want to, even though we're sitting at number 9, we don't have to go to number 1. We can go to number 2, 3, or whatever, and get Stroud or Bryce Young if that's your guy. You probably could have gotten him there, but you got Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. There's all kinds of quarterbacks there that you could have gotten. You didn't have to give up everything to move up to number 1. But like we said in the beginning of the year, you did it. It is what it is. You paid the price. Now this is your guy, and it has to work. So you're in a predicament now where, let's be real, he ran out Frank Reich. He ran him off. Frank Reich has been hinting at that for weeks that he just doesn't like working with Tepper.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. Right. So now the next coach, that's why I said it has to be somebody on the team. And when you do fire Fitterer, because it has to happen, when you fire Fitterer, you bring in the next GM, you have to let the GM know whoever the next coach is. I suggest somebody on the team already that was part of the process of bringing in Bryce Young, but whoever you bring in, it has to be understood. This is your guy. Mm-hmm. Look at Bryce Young as you would Aaron Rodgers. Look at Bryce, as you would a Matt Stafford, as you would an established QB that going in there. No, I'm here to work with him, nobody else, because anything less than that, Bryce Young's going to fail. He needs a coach that's going to be 100% on his side.
Yeah, and at this point, they're almost in a position where they're going to have to sacrifice their defensive assets to build the offense, because you've traded away Christian McCaffrey, you traded away DJ Moore, you traded away, next year's first round pick, or this year's first round pick and next year's second round pick. You traded away multiple picks to get Darnold and Baker Mayfield and whatnot, and you have no real way of recouping those picks outside of say, hey, maybe we're going to tag and trade Brian Burns. We're going to try and trade Jeremy Chin. Move on from Derek Brown, or they were trying to sell some of those guys at the deadline, just they couldn't get it done. And at this point, that may be the route they try and go. Because you don't want to be in a situation where Bryce Young has to go through another season anything like this one.
Right.
You kind of look at it, and I'm not a body language expert. We're not in the room with Bryce Young or anything, but he seems to be holding up, relatively well. I haven't seen him turn his back to the line and run away like David Carr used to do. So I think he's still there mentally, but you don't want to test that in a second season, right? No. Because right now, there's plays where by the time he finishes his drop back, he's about to get sacked.
Yes.
He's just got no chance. And they're going to have to sacrifice something to try and turn around the offense quickly. Doesn't have to make it a great offense, but you have to be functional if you want to, salvage Bryce Young and be able to properly evaluate him, because you can't really do that at this point.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're 1-10, right? You still have 6 games left to go.
And again, I'll keep pointing this out for the people who will want to say that they made a mistake by drafting Bryce Young. That one win is over CJ Stroud. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Just putting that out there. 1-0 for the career.
If you think Bryce Young is just flat out bad, that tells me you haven't actually watched any of these games, right? He literally has no time in the pocket.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see what Tabor can do with this O-line, with this scheme to help keep him upright. That's the real challenge over these next 6 weeks. Keeping him upright, actually giving him a chance to do something back there in the pocket. It's going to be tough, man. You guys are in a bad way, but that's the challenge. And then looking for, at this point, will be your 7th head coach, right? If you're including interims, you're talking about coaches that have been fired, interim coaches, next head coach. This is number 6 right here.
Yeah.
Right. And
we're also Ron Rivera, Ben McAdoo, Matt Rule, Steve Wilkes, Frank Reich, Chris Tabor, and then whoever becomes the eventual head coach.
Yeah. There's another one in there.
Yikes. No, that was it, I believe.
Nah, there was one more, I thought.
Nah.
No. Okay. All right. But yes, yeah. That's a lot of coaches.
Yeah, you gone through a lot of quarterbacks too. So it's whatever, right?
And also
you keep you don't buy the first thing you try on at the store, do you?
Yeah. I also want to point this out because they love putting players' business out there. Frank Reich is owed $9 million per year for the next, was it 3 years?
Yeah, next 3 years. Fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
He signed a 4-year deal.
Matt Rule's still getting paid too, by the way.
Yeah, we're still getting paid.
Yeah. So
getting paid a lot.
Getting paid a lot of money. A lot of money you're putting towards coaches. OTR Mike actually did an episode, an open mic with OTR Mike about this, about how much money the league owners in the league spend on coaches that they're not employing anymore.
Yeah.
Right. They hire coaches. They're guaranteed contracts, and then they decide after a year or two that they don't want the coach anymore. They fire them, and they're still on the hook for the money.
Yeah.
But they spend a whole lot of money on bad decisions.
Yeah.
And they write it off like it's nothing.
And listen, we got to get out of here. We'll close it out with this. I know there was a lot of negative talk about the Panthers and the way they're being run by David Tepper, and rightfully so. But T. Higgins, if you're listening, just ignore all that. Come down to Charlotte. Right, it's the place for you. Okay, you got your franchise quarterback. You're gonna get paid. The owner's desperate, bro. Come on down.
You can write your own
watch
check.
you in Cincinnati.
There you go. We'll leave it at that. Make sure you hit that like button. If you are new, hit the subscribe button. All right, we're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the football season. So help us reach that goal. Also, if you want to help support the show further, go to patreon.com/LBHTShow. Sign up for one of our tiers. We got a lot of perks over there for you. So check it out. See which one is suitable for you, and go ahead and sign up. But that is it. I will see you guys on Wednesday. B will be in Japan. Yes. All right. Getting me a katana blade.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. But B, safe travels.
Thank you.
See when you get back. And myself and Hendo from the Road Pod will see you guys on Wednesday. Peace.